Okay, we are there. You can hear me. I probably can hear you. So let's start. We have already started this time. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the next Wasteless World Talks with Bill and Kevin and myself. And the term today is humble. And I would like to ask Bill first. Bill, if you close your eyes and you'd hear the term humble, what came first to your mind, please?
It's a word I do not hear much of these days. Humble. Humble is a humble. I like people who are humble. Um, why? Because the opposite of that is we call it in your face, and 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 we're not humble enough anymore. None of us are humble enough. Everybody's trying to prove something or um, be in your face. It has to do with people's personality, and 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 I don't react well to people who are not humble.
What about you, Kevin? What came first to your mind?
Well, I worked for 40 years in advertising, and so I've never come across humble in my life. It doesn't exist in that business. It's we know roughly what the concept of it is, but it's not anything I've ever encountered, sadly.
Is the opposite of humble intimidating?
Yeah, yeah, unbearable, overbearing.
Proud?
It's quite interesting because in the noon discussion, which was recorded and it's online already, we came to the conclusion that there is to be humble. It can be in a good way or in a bad way. So in the good way, it's generally you mentioned it, Bill. So it's someone who does not show up in some way, who is good but it does not show up. But in the negative way, people are humble because they fear to show up. And in the communist time, when I was living for the first 18 years of my life, we shouldn't show up. Everybody should be in the same line. Nobody should be better or worse because humble was in some way a negative term at the time. That was strange. And what was interesting today, that few people says exactly as you, I do not remember when I hear it for the last time.
In in this country, um, there's there's been a lot of intimidation having to do with the politics and whatever tribe you associate with. Um, and I just started with the word intimidation a couple of months ago because I looked at a pickup truck. You know what a pickup truck is? It's got an open back. And I've driven pickup trucks, but they've always been about the size of a sedan, of a regular car. They just have a open back on them. Recently, within the last few years, pickup trucks have gotten to be monster trucks, right? They're high up off the ground, they have big wheels, the suspension lifts them up so you can see, and 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 just big. They've got a back seat in them now. And the thing that really bothers me, because it's so intimidating, is is the front end. So if I'm driving it and I look out over the hood of the car, it's up so high that the driver cannot see a child walking in front of his truck. And in fact, the traffic fatalities have gone up. One of the contributing factors, they say, is the height of the front end limits the driver's view. And I've heard that even in Europe, there are laws against having over a certain height, right? So this is an American thing, right? And the other thing that the pickup trucks do is they put an American flag on there. Now, I love the American flag, but it's meant as a symbol of the far right, of it's another intimidation thing. Then they take off the mufflers so it's a loud noise, right? Nothing that I just said gets anywhere near the word humble, right? I'd like to get back to humble a little bit.
I don't know
But
whether
Bill,
you guys, sorry, Kevin, you.
I was going to say, Bill, don't forget that the reason the trucks have got bigger is because the gun rack has to be bigger, because guns themselves have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So in the old days, a 308 Winchester was standard rifle size. Now you need a Lapua, or you need a BMG 50 cal, and you need a big truck to get those things inside.
I don't know whether you noticed that the Cybertruck get autonomous driving update yesterday or day before yesterday. I don't know whether you have seen that.
I haven't seen it, but say that again. I didn't
The
hear it.
Cybertruck, they
Yeah.
get a software update for autonomous driving. And the
Okay.
first images which show up was a Cybertruck which hit a pole or something like that because it was on. And it was very interesting because probably no casualties, but the pole was in the middle of the front part. So it must be either very speedy run in a city probably, or it is a very poor product. And I don't know whether you watched yesterday what I sent you the video with who was there? Stephen Fry, as he says with the joke at the end. That was so hilarious. Elon Musk is not a Nazi. Nazis build good trucks or good cars. That was so great, especially from this man. I would like to have him here on one of the events of the next month. And it was an interesting discussion.
The Cybertruck is not allowed to be sold in Europe because of
really?
Yeah, in Europe that it's too high, and also the front of the car must have crumple zones, so that if you hit a person standing, they get protected if they go onto the bonnet. And the Cybertruck is too hard, so it's not allowed to be sold.
It's not completely right, Kevin. One is in UK, and it was seized by the police. One is in Czech Republic. There has been some modifications done, and one was sold in Slovakia to one rapper who bought it in Dubai, which he cannot use it, but he has a Cybertruck, so there are three.
Nice museum pieces.
That's right.
Okay, so if the Cybertruck is the model for the concept of intimidation, what is the vehicle that represents humble?
I will say electric unicycle, you know, you cannot have less wheels than one. No, I don't think it is about the vehicle itself. No matter which vehicle you drive, you can be humble inside. You know, that's the difference. I think that you can drive even a Cybertruck. If you can be humble, but if you will be humble, you will never buy a Cybertruck. So for me, it's and that was one of the topic. I asked Charito, who came from Philippines. I asked her, "Do you think that your nation is humble?" And she was very confused. She said it's very difficult question because a humble, I think, can be a person, but not a nation. But she explained it very well, and I cannot repeat it. But it was very interesting, and she said one very interesting thing. She said, you know, we are called the third nation, underdeveloped nation. We do not try to pretend to be high tech, whatever. No, in some way we are humble because we accept it as we are. We work outside, we work in other countries as au pairs and helpers and so on. These are the people from Philippines are known for this. But she said, I don't think a nation can be humble. But I think a person, it is a personal thing. And that's exactly with a car. Or with anything else, of course.
And I think it's a lot of national traits to these things. I mean, in Germany, if you have a Mercedes on the front of your car, you are not a humble person, and you won't behave humbly. It's and same in England. If you have a BMW, you're not a humble person.
But that's interesting that you should say that because we've done a couple of studies here. And the experiment goes like this. The scientist watches pedestrians crossing the street in a crosswalk, right? And counts the number of cars and the types of cars that either slow down and stop for the pedestrian or just speed on through and don't stop for him. And an overwhelming majority of the cars that speed on through are upper echelon cars. They are Mercedes, Audis, the expensive ones. And the overwhelming majority of those cars who slow down and stop and let the pedestrian cross the street safely are lower tier cars. So can that be humble versus intimidating also?
I remember we did a study when I was working doing advertising for Volkswagen, and the safest car at the time was Volvo, and the second safest was Saab. And in North America, they weren't great sellers, except amongst teachers, where they were both the most popular car, 1 and 2 amongst teachers, which I think says a lot about how decent teachers are.
Right, right. That's good. I like that.
I think that the humble people don't need the symbols of their existence, of their power and so on, no matter which symbol it is. It can be a car, it can be expensive clothing, it can be a private jet, whatever. You know, people who meet at Davos, I don't think there is a single one who was humble.
So, guys, I have a thought for you. There must be a difference between being humble and humility. But I wonder if one is the derivative of the other, because humility is more positive than humbleness, I think. And to answer your question, Michael, nations can be humbled. Nations can be humbled in defeat after a war. Nations can be humbled by economic collapse, or there's a number of ways you can humble the nation.
That's
or that a
interesting.
nation can feel humbled.
And
But humility is much more positive, don't you think? If you have humility, it's far more positive than if you are humble, because then you're not humbled.
you know, I would be interested if we born humble.
If we are born humble, that's funny. I'm thinking of my grandchildren right now, and and I think when they were born, they were totally demanding, right? Feed me, change me. It was all about them. But somewhere, year one, two, or three, or something like that, they get they it switches. I can still remember the two boys when they were 4 and 2 or 3 and 1, might have been anyhow, somewhere in that age. And I yelled at the older one. I don't know why. And I'm not really a yeller, but I did yell at him. And the little one got up and went over and hugged him and gave me a defiant look. So that's a type of humility when you feel like you can help somebody else. Is it? I mean, is that valid?
Yeah, maybe humility is is a more positive version of humble is a negative and humility is the positive.
There are perhaps some other um, words that would be synonyms, would be same as, and I'm thinking of courteous or gentle or polite. Is that also?
I think they are from the same
Those are all
rank.
very positive. I'm sorry.
I think they are from the same rank, but I'm not sure if they are this. You know, I am still working with the translation to check. So this is where we don't have these big differences between the words. So the humble came to me, and I took it. I look what it really means according to the vocabulary or dictionary. So this is why I choose it. But I am sure there will be more.
Yeah, I think unpretentious is a nice synonym for humble. Certainly talking about cars.
Unpretentious. I like that.
On the other hand, I don't think I have heard any of these terms frequently in the last whatever 50 years or 40. Not really, especially in the last 30.
Yeah, it's not it's not anything we value anymore, it seems. Even though we celebrate the birth of Christ on the 25th of December or 24th of December, those values he brought with him have been forgotten. I think the humbleness, the humility, we don't celebrate those as positive, or we don't value them as much as we should do, perhaps.
And I think they count to the terms which we should value more. We should wake them up in some way, because if you look at the White House office where is JR or sorry, DJ signing in front of ER. I didn't know he has R in his name. ER and DJ. So ER is standing there with a hat on with his cap on his head. You know, in Czech Republic, it's not polite to enter a room, especially such a room, with a hat on. You take hat off. If you go to church or anything, you have never the hat on. So it's for me, I can't explain, but we don't see this value in these people. We don't see it in the leaders which are presented as leaders, no matter where they are sitting. Even the UN, I'm sure there are humble people at the very end of the chain, but the people at the top, they lost anything of that a long time ago before they joined. I think you cannot even join a politics if you are humble. It will eat you up immediately.
Yeah, you cannot be in politics if you are not always, all the time, self-promoting. And that's the different, and that's the opposite of humble, I think.
On the other side, you both are artists. You are writers, and writers are artists. And you express yourself by presenting your work. And there was Pat, she is artist in Australia. And she said, you cannot humble, you have to divide the author and the work. Because you can be humble as author, but you would like your work to be seen, to be resonating, to be whatever. So it's the very opposite of humble. You need to be visible. But as an author, and she said a very interesting thing, many of the old authors and painters and whoever, there has been famous after their death, because there has been almost invisible because of being humble. That's an interesting point.
I saw an interview once with John Cleese, the guy from Monty Python, and he was very funny but very unhappy. And then he started seeing a psychiatrist, and he said this great thing. He said that if he were a painter instead of a comedian, he would much rather be the guy painting portraits, getting well paid, and no one's ever heard of him, rather than be Vincent van Gogh. He said it's not funny to go through torment for your art. Not funny at all.
To be honest, I was surprised when I sent you yesterday the Stephen Fry talk or discussion or interview, what it was. I don't know how to call it. I was surprised about the deep knowledge and the deep analyzing of the language. It was so wonderful to listen to this guy. So wonderful how he was the very opposite then, successful as a child and so on. And then he started to play with the words, to do the anagrams and so on. It was so interesting, and many people see him only as a one part of the Top Gear, the funny guy who is the highest one of those three. And, it was so interesting, so interesting. And these people should be, we should listen to them more. And I feel that at least many people told me that there is a lot of, at least here in Czech Republic, a lot of podcasts are showing up. Like at the start of COVID, there has been new way of communicating was a podcast. So a lot of show up, then they disappear completely. And just now they are somehow regrown. And that's interesting. Because I think the people look for communication, for the possibility to express themselves, but I don't think, at least people who came to me, I think that almost all of them are very humble people. Yesterday, I have a girl who is generally, her father was from Vietnam, mother from Czech Republic, but she was not living with, as a child. She was, I don't know how to say, the family gave her away. So she was with all these 23 families in her child. There was abuse and a lot of things. So she has to have an unbelievable hard childhood. And she grew up in such a strong woman with a lot of medical problems, but a strong woman with such a wonderful laugh. She laughed, and I saw a mountain river, the clean water spreading. That was so beautiful. I think so that we grow into being humble. And you describe it quite well with your grandchildren. That's interesting because we are not, then we become, but then there must be the moment when we again go up and lose the humble moment because it's not matching the society or expectations or whatever. So at least it looks like to me. May I ask you one question, completely a different one? Do you remember the times when the seat belts has been introduced?
Oh yeah.
Can you tell me whether the cars, the existing cars without seat belts, has been re-equipped with seat belts, or you have to buy a new car which has seat belts?
New cars.
So there was no re-equipment at the time.
Yeah, just new cars.
Okay.
And
Okay.
they've evolved, and there were a lot of people who said, "I'm not going to wear that damn thing," right? Uh, and they came up with really odd reasons why they're not going to wear that damn thing. And the one I heard the most was, if I ever have an accident and run off the road into the lake, I might not be able to get it off me. So I'm trying to remember the last time I ever saw any car. Uh, anyhow, it's that statement comes from somebody who's not humble because they think they know it. They know it all. Um, and so I think if you find a humble person, they'll be the first one to tell you, I, I don't know it all. In fact, there is no truth, no truths, and they're less likely to a humble person is wants to know, is always has an inquisitive mind. Why is that? Asks good questions, um, and humble. And somebody who is not humble, they know it. They know all the truth. They know it, right?
I think that the humble people are able to listen to the others.
Listen, right.
I have here today in my office, I have here an unexpected visit. A young man came to me, and you know who he was. You remember I told you about my first keynote at a university, the Charles University, the oldest in the country. It's 10 years ago. And this man was one of the students. And what was interesting, he remembered every single word which I said. Not only remembered, he used it in his work. And he came today, 10 years later, to introduce me his new project, which he would like me to be part of. And he spoke about social waste. He spoke about all the topics, and for me, the first feeling from this keynote was very negative because I was thinking I kill the people with stupidness of myself because I have no university and so on. I have a very bad feeling. At the time, I did not know that all my keynotes have this response from the audience, but it was so interesting. And he came up and he remembers, and just the day before yesterday.
Yep, that is the reason you are on Earth, is
Uh,
to plant these seeds, and you're doing a good job.
And day before yesterday, I was offered or I was told that there is a school they would like to rename a university to MicroRada University, And I said, it's a very strange feeling, And I have no university degree myself, so for me it's more important the content which will be educated, not the name. The name is whatever, I don't care. But receiving such an offer, it's a very, very strange feeling. Very strange feeling. And I prefer to listen to the students, not to read. I do remember many schools in my country has the name of Johannes Comenius, which we call the teacher of nations. Nobody know him, but we know him. No, he was the first one who said school should be a game. And he played his way, and then he died in Netherlands and so on. So he lived in Middle Ages. So he was very, very progressive at the time. And many schools has its names. but the people hate, the student hates the school, and I do not want to be on the top of a school and everybody looks, once again. No, not really. But I didn't answer them yet, so they are waiting for my answer. So, but I will probably read. It's an honor.
I would agree. Yeah, I think it's, yeah. I mean,
I will send him your name. I will send him your name, so maybe they will change.
Bill, in America, do you eat humble pie?
Yes. Yes. If you are humiliated, then you are eating humble pie. Yeah.
How about you, Michael?
Never heard this.
Yeah, like Bill says, if if you do something you shouldn't really have done, and then you're forced to eat humble pie, which is to be very you normally wind up being very sorry for yourself. But it is a kind of it's a kind of humiliation. It is a way of being put back in your place.
I will try to think about whether we have something. We probably have something similar, but at the moment I do not come to anything which sounds similar or means similar thing.
So if somebody is, we call it very, very full of themselves, and someone forces them to eat humble pie, how do you, what words do you use to say when somebody who is very proud has to become less proud, has to become less humble?
I don't know. I don't know. I have to think about it because it's, as I said, the term for me was the main which came to my mind. Then I translated, and there will be something, but at the moment I don't know. I will ask my colleague tomorrow because I really don't know.
We have this wonderful word, contrition. Do you have the same thing?
Well, us Catholics know the prayer, the act of contrition, contrite.
Yeah.
I don't hear that word very much anymore.
No.
I have to check in the translation, so I didn't ever hear this term. Yeah, we don't use this very frequently as well. At least we have it translated in two ways. One is very religious, and the second is like a pity. If you say, I'm a pity, it's a pity. This is the second meaning here for the term contrition. But it's not used very frequently. And we spoke a while ago about error. Even the error is not frequently used. So,
yeah. So, Michael, at the beginning of this talk today, you had said that something we need to bring some words back to life. So we don't hear the word humble very often. It's a word that through things like these talks, humble, we give it a little bit more life. People listen to the word humble. They think about, after this, they'll think about the word humble a little bit. We are breathing a little bit of life back into it. And maybe we should pick words in the future that we want to bring back to life, like the word contrite, right? Bring it back to life.
I'm sure.
Humility.
I think generally, as we mentioned last time, I think that everybody who is listening should do similar things. Have a discussion with someone, with friends. They can record it without recording, no matter. But take a term and speak about it. That's so great. I love the talks about nothing. I really love them because we came to such things and emotions and a lot of which is hidden somewhere. But if you start to talk about nothing, if you start to talk about wasteless world, if you start this relationship which we have, you discovered, you bring life in it, you share it, the other people start to think about it, and it is so great. And the language deserves it. The language itself is very humble because it does not call, I am here, use me. And we unfortunately forget how to use the language correctly. We lose the words, we lose the terms, we switch letters with emojis. It's horrible.
And especially politicians. We have to be really careful of how politicians use words and phrases.
And marketing people. I mean, marketing people change the language and they camouflage things and they change the meanings. I've been a sales and marketing person for 50 years. And I am so embarrassed as to, when I go to the grocery store and something says eco-friendly or earth-friendly. But I looked up the word humble, and one of the words that it says lowly, but it also says ground or grounded, and that takes us back to nature, doesn't it? Put your feet in the dirt, and you begin to think like a tree or grounded. I love the word grounded, and that's another word that we don't use very much. And there are fewer and fewer people who are well grounded, either in humanity or whatever. But that ground is a very interesting word.
Can you answer me the question? If I hear you that someone was grounded, in my head translation is that somebody knocked him down and he lie on the ground, but this is not the meaning.
There are positive and negative definitions for grounded. When I was a teenager, and if I did something that my parents disagreed with, I was grounded. Which means put your driver's license on the mantle for 30 days or whatever. And so grounded means you're not getting the car. So it was a punishment. But grounded, when people will say things like, well, he's very well grounded in physics, which means he has a good understanding of physics. But it also means grounded is a kind of a new age with a meaning like he's of the earth. He spends time in the forest, laying on his back and watching the trees. Grounded. It has a very nature connection.
There's also another nice meaning, not so much of grounded, but of ground. And that is if you're doing a painting, an oil painting or gouache painting, you put a very light wash of the rough colors where they're going to be onto the canvas, and that's a ground. So without a solid ground, without a solid foundation, you can't build upon that. And that's the same in most aspects of life, I think.
And we are almost grounded because we have 2 minutes left.
Then we have to ask Bill, what did you do to get grounded for 30 days?
Oh, man. I was not allowed to go to my girlfriend's house if her parents were not there. Well, one time I did, and I told my mom about it, but I was afraid to tell my dad about it. And it was snowing, and on the way home, I ran the car off the road. And my dad called the tow truck, and when I got home, he just said, put your driver's license on the mantle, and we'll talk about it in the morning. And that was a 30-day grounding. So just for example, and I'm sure both of you did the same thing or similar things.
No, I have no car, so it was easy for me. We have 1 minute left. It was a great discussion again. Thank you. And Heaven, I would like everyone who listened to this that they have a same as you. Have a nice day. Free of waste and wasting all its forms. Stay safe. Be free. Be human. And remain grounded.
Humble, excuse me.
And humble. Because I think we are. And many should be as well. See you next week at the same time. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.